Hi everybody, good morning. It's a pleasure to introduce this first panel. I would like to invite Maren and Nando and Pavel also to join us here so that we can have a panel. I'll just let you know a little bit about the format. At the beginning I'll introduce the guests, then each one of them will have about 5 to 10 minutes of their own introduction, speaking about their work and their project. And then we'll have about 45 minutes of discussion where you can contribute with your questions. We'll open up space later after their introductions. I'll start from the left. First guest of this panel discussion is Hana Gabrielová, which most of you know, but I'll let you know a little bit about her. She graduated at the Agricultural University in Budweis with a thesis on cultivation of hemp. She led advocacy and policy initiatives in the EU and internationally. She served as an expert at the EU's Commission Focus Group on Sustainable Industrial Crops. She's a CEO of HempPoint, her own company. She's the president of CzecHemp and also a co-founder of Hemp the Climate and Ekonomiky US recently, her own company in the United States. Hana is a big expert on the hemp industry, as most of you know. I like to call her the signpost of the hemp industry. Every time I look for someone around the world and I just blindly point at the map and I find Mongolia, as it happened recently, she always has someone in each country to connect with. Then on the right from her, we have Maren Krings, who's a freelance German photojournalist and a climate impact storyteller and a filmmaker. Her work focuses on socio-ecological crisis and storytelling. Recently, she also launched a book that she's been working on for 6 years. It's like an encyclopedic book called H is for Hemp. She has the book here, so you can find it later. She traveled in 26 countries and visited about 200 projects and made like 80 interviews with hemp experts, researchers, entrepreneurs, scientists, not just on the topic of hemp, but also especially its role in climate mitigation. She also serves as a member of the board of the Linnaeus Institute in Germany, and she sits on the sustainability committee at FIHO, which is a federation of industrial hemp associations. Right. On the right we have Nando Knodel, who's co-founder of HempConnect, a German company. He holds a degree in business administration from the University of Hamburg. His master thesis examined industrial hemp from a financial economic perspective, which over the years of Nando in the hemp industry has extended onto, let's say, ecological dimensions of this plant, with extensive research in the use of hemp for biochar in carbon sequestration and carbon removal credits, which we'll talk about it later. Then here on my right side, we have Pavel Zedníček, who is currently an executive director at INCIEN, which is an Institute for Circular Economy, based here in Prague. Pavel studied at the University of Chemistry and Technology in Prague and holds a master's degree from a university in Utrecht in the Netherlands in the field of sustainable business and innovations. He participated in projects and partnerships in France, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Spain, and Shanghai. Yeah, am I correct? And his focus is the potential of circular economy to achieve major carbon reduction emissions in heavy industry. So, yeah, that being said, I'll pass the word on to Hana to introduce her work.
So I will just briefly introduce the NGO which organized this event and give a few words about our cluster. So our cluster was founded 5 years ago in 2018. Our mission is to empower the collaboration and know-how of the Czech cannabis and medical cannabis industry sector. Today we have a conference just about the industrial hemp, but we do separate events on medical cannabis. We work closely with the government on the adult use of medical cannabis, removing barriers, and We also work with EA on topic of CBD regulation in Europe. So, but today we will focus only on industrial hemp and industry. But because we're small country, so we kind of covering all topics regards this one plant. Our goal is to increase the production of industrial hemp and also kind of cover all the value chains what we have and boost the hemp production towards the bioeconomy. And we have not only companies but also NGOs, institutions from government side like the Institute for Food Research, and we also have members of from the universities. Our network, we are a member of EA, European Industrial Hemp Association, European Cluster Collaboration Platform, which brings us opportunity to share and learn and also do projects together. National Cluster Association, it's the Czech body which kind of networks all the cluster associations or cluster organizations. There is like 22 clusters in Czech Republic under this organization. We are also working now closely with the platform from bioeconomy of Czech Republic. We're working on creating the bioeconomy strategy. And we became recently the member of the hotspot of the INCIEN, the Cirkulární Institute. Our partners are the Climate NGO, which works on the climate mitigation and kind of integrating the hemp in the value chains. Think tank of the rational politics of the addictions. There we work mostly on the adult use with the government bodies, which highly debating now the adult use in Czech Republic. And the magazine Ekonomiky giving us space to share what we learn with the public to kind of present what we're working on. We have 3 working groups. Industrial hemp, it's probably the most relevant to this meeting, but where we work closely with Czech Invest, Hemp the Climate, Minister of Agriculture, and Minister of Regional Development. Medical cannabis group has like patient organization, people from FNUSA, which is the hospital which prescribes most medical cannabis, and Association for Medical Cannabis Producers. And we have like big, probably the most active legislation group to remove all the legislative barriers. And it's not much relevant to this topic because there is not much barriers in the industrial hemp, luckily. Our project, what we getting funding are the MIDAS, the marginal lands and industrial crop research in the 8 countries and 22 research institutions, universities, but also SMEs from around Europe. And there we're working on the not only hemp, but we bringing our expertise on hemp, but it's really like how the industrial crops can increase the biodiversity and also kind of make production of the marginal lands. And Hemp Club project, we didn't say much about that, but it's a project which ending in next January, and it gave us opportunity to do and run these cluster exchanges, what will follow after this conference, and people for the cluster exchange are already sitting here with you to learn from our conference. And basically it's like mapping the value chains of industrial hemp in Czech Republic, not only Czech Republic, but all Europe, and trying to kind of cover the value chain and bring the people together to strengthen the collaboration. We also create the events. This is one of them, but the next one coming soon will be the cluster meet regions, where we're working with the National Cluster Association. So it will be a big meeting in Czech Republic of all the clusters of Europe in Czech Republic, where we're going to be present. The next one is the Cannafest Expo, where we're helping organize the international conference, and there will be also having the booth to present and give a space for our members to present what they do and meet with potential visitors of Cannabis. And next year we will be hosting, as a Czech Republic, in collaboration with Maurice Beagle from Colorado, who organized there the NOCO Expo. So we will be having like European NOCO Expo, the biggest, largest international expo in US. So we will, after 6 years, I managed to convince him to do international expo focus only on industrial hemp in Europe. So and it will be together with the European Industrial Hemp Association conference. So it will be in the Vyšehrad. There is the biggest, largest conference place. Yeah, so that's from me. I hope I was like short enough, and if you have some questions, I will be here all day. And yeah, so I will pass my work.
Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Lovely to see a lot of known faces. And while my presentation is coming up, I just want to thank Matt for the introduction. He already took away a lot from me, or from my shoulders, for the introduction. This book, or this one here, same one, that's the thing that I'm bringing to the hemp space. It took me 6 years, 4 years in the field, traveling the 26 countries on 4 continents. Then another 2 years to actually do all of the research. And my aim with this book from the beginning on was to create something in the hemp industry that can unify all of this diversity of topics, of industry fields, to give a bit more clarity on how do things work, and also maybe to take away from people who are actually selling, let's say, building blocks that have to explain the textile space. Because since there's so much missing knowledge on hemp in the global perspective, that usually is what happens. Can we, oh, here we go, sorry. There we go. So I just want to show you really quickly the index of the book, which here's a couple of the key chapters that I like to claim when it comes down to sustainability topics. And I used Kate Raworth's Donut Economy as a base work for the book, which means I really focused in on trying to see how can hemp be applied to work and income, how can it be applied to water, to energy, to social equity. And these are becoming all of these, as you can see, encyclopedic chapters where each one covers one of these topics. Next slide, please. Sorry, here we go. Yep. And one of the topics is also tree-free or water. I connected the paper topic to water. Paper became a huge thing for me because when I realized that my book has a lot of pages, 624, I became a bit more aware that actually I'm creating a huge footprint, or also a lot of destruction, if I print that on tree-based paper. So very early in the game of my journey, I declared that I was going to publish my book on hemp paper, and then later on, when I was getting ready to actually publish it, I realized there isn't so much paper out there that's actually sort of meeting the qualities for standard printing a book. So eventually I had to step up and become a bit more of an entrepreneur in the space, which definitely made me change sides to all of you. And I developed a paper with the German manufacturer Hana. It took us 2 years. It became a paper that's unfortunately very expensive, but it is out in the market and it can be used by people, by companies who want to afford in it, and it is completely tree-free, and that was sort of my aim. We have 60% hemp in it, we have 40% cotton in it, and the reason being is when I spent time with my indigenous friends, the Sami in the north, in Scandinavia, I realized how much of a struggle it is for them to preserve the ancient forest. And whilst most of us think about the Amazon when we think about deforestation and our ecological problems deriving from that, it's actually also the boreal forests that are taking up a huge amount of carbon with the lichens, with the Arctic soils that keep it much more compressed and stored for a long time. The chart speaks its own words. If you look at Finland, Finland was literally completely deforested in 1 century. And I surely didn't want to attribute to that with my book that's talking mainly about sustainability. This is a scene that actually got me inspired on the paper development of the book. When I spent a winter with my Sami friends up north, I realized that their reindeer are actually dying out because they're not finding any lichens anymore. They're not finding lichens for many reasons. There's climate change, which is causing very specific climatic situations that basically prevents the animals from finding the lichen. But also the 600 and plus years old forests that actually have the lichens growing on them, they're disappearing due to our paper consumption. So that's that. If anybody wants to scan in the barcode, this is another report that was just released by the Coalition of Drug and Environment that I also happen to work with. And it makes a very interesting link. So while we're talking about industrial hemp becoming a mitigation factor for climate change, its cousin, or let's say the umbrella plant, cannabis in the Amazon, is certainly one to accelerate climate change by causing the deforestation of forests. And if you look into this paper, that's a lengthy topic. You can educate yourself on that. It's very interesting, but I wanted to bring this in here because I'm also very much propagating for the holistic plant approach, where we really have, we cannot separate industrial hemp from cannabis, because eventually these are the problems that we're running into. Another thing that was very recent, I just came back from Ukraine, and I think this is one of the topics that's driving me most at the moment, because if we're looking at climate change mitigation, hemp in the building space is a huge factor. It's carbon negative, and we will always need buildings, and we have more and more of these occurring situations where, due to climate change, disastrous natural events, either it be earthquakes or flooding, we're losing a lot of houses, and we have to rebuild these spaces. And it was phenomenal to see that Ukraine is doing this already during the ongoing war. And just to also throw in some numbers again, we're talking about roughly 70% of a carbon footprint that our building industry is contributing to climate change. This, of course, is split up in energy that buildings use into the raw materials that are used for housing. I'm not going to go into any details because I think we have other experts talking about that today. But it's a huge thing. We also consider our responsibility to the global SDGs when it comes down to rebuilding after wars or after natural disaster. And therefore, network, and that's why we're here today. I put in the Alpine Hemp Network. That was one of the things that I took as a best practice example in my book. It certainly shows that we will move nowhere if everybody tries to invent the first part of the wheel in each and every country again and again. And therefore, I really embrace events like this here today, where we come together to network, to exchange, and also to see how we can really, with true efforts, join hands and move the sector forward. And as Hana so lovingly said yesterday in a conversation, move from hemp production to a hemp industry. I love that. Thank you, Hana, and thank you everyone for being here.
My name is Nando. I'm the co-founder of HempConnect. Maybe I'll not do that whole intro because Mate already did that. I'm also advising on the FIHO Committee for Sustainability with Maren together, and also for research and standards. So mostly what we do is biochar carbon removal with hemp, also with other agricultural residues. We're also looking into building material at the moment. But in general, we're considering a lot on how to put hemp as an industry into the carbon removal market. So just a quick introduction on this whole topic. We just heard it before. There are targets, especially a climate target is to be net zero by 2050, so mid-century. And that means that we need 10 gigatons of net removals per year, and that's not reducing or avoiding emissions. It's actually removing them, net negative. So doing activities that in the process take more CO2 out of the air than they emit again. And of that target, we have only delivered 0.0476%, which is marginal, right? So way to go in the next 30 years if we want to reach a climate neutral economy. So that's where hemp comes into play, and the method of biochar or building material. So initially we thought it's worth a shot to try out how hemp works in combination with biochar, or like as a feedstock for biochar. So we did lab tests on hemp hurd and whole hemp stalk, and those gave roughly 70% pure carbon. Agro-grade, meaning you can use them for agricultural purposes again, fertilizer amendment, whatsoever. And then that gave us reason to do proof of concept on an industrial scale. So that yielded about 60% pure carbon and feed grade, so actually one quality grade on top of that. And then that biochar you can actually eat or feed it to cows. So it's really high quality, no toxins whatsoever. That was done on whole hemp stalk pellets. So, of course, the economic feasibility of this is different. If you decorticate before you have another product. So we've done this with whole hemp stalk pellets as residues from the seed production. And it turns out it's not so easy to do that in Europe. It's quite expensive feedstock. And then we still have an abundance of other feedstocks, like wood chips, for example, which is still cheaper. So yeah, that's where we shifted to artisan biochar production. I mean, with that epiphany of in Europe, you really need the residues of any kind of hemp production. So, for example, the dust pelletized, that would turn out to be feasible feedstock from a financial perspective. That's different in other countries, of course. In Europe, we have different economics. So if you do that in a country where there's less income, you actually have a bigger impact. And you can also produce biochar with more rudimentary methods, so it doesn't have to be high-tech. On the right-hand side, you see a prototype kiln. Yeah, there's several advantages as well. This is now a pilot that was not with hemp. You can basically use any kind of agricultural residues. This one was a corn cob. So the benefits for a farmer, smallholder farmer in a country like Zimbabwe, for example, where we have recently been, is that you, of course, save cost if you turn waste into fertilizers. Biochar has certain soil improvements, for example, adds water holding capacity, and you also have nutrient availability in times where nutrients are more absent, drought periods, for example. Of course, you can get additional income, so the idea is that smallholder farmers, of course, get a share of that credit that is being sold in the end. And also it's a future-proof design, because this is how people in the Global South can also participate in the climate economy. And yeah, we've published a report that is summarizing a lot of this on about 10 pages and explaining a little bit more with some sources to dig a little bit deeper. And yeah, I'd like to encourage you to take a look at that if you are interested in the whole topic. So far, so good.
It's Pavel turn, so.
Sure, all right. So good morning, everybody. I don't have any presentation, hope you'll forgive me. The reason for that is also that I'm not very eligible in terms of knowledge around hemp, but I hope I'll have a different added value in this discussion. So my name is Pavel. I'm a CEO of an Institute of Circular Economy, which is basically to this day the only NGO strictly focusing on circularity in the Czech Republic. We've been here for around 10 years. Maybe just a short intro around the organization. We have it's around 15 people. We have 3 key pillars. One of them was already mentioned by Hanka, so that's the sort of like a platform or association of companies and organizations called Czech Circle Hotspot. So we have around 80 organizations on board, including Škoda Auto, Skanska, and other organizations, with the aim to create a sort of like a movement around circularity. Then we do some consultancy work, but primarily we work on, and that's the third pillar, which we call think tank, where we really focus on what should be done in the Czech Republic in order to accelerate circularity into practice, and we mostly focus on that through the decarbonization lens. So we've actually published a report 2 years ago or a year and a half ago with the title "The Role of Circular Economy in Decarbonization of Industry." And I know that Hanka then wrote me an email with an exclamation mark, "There's no mentioning of hemp."
No,
And
I didn't say that. Plant-based product.
yeah, all right. But the thing is that it's mostly focused on steel, cement, aluminum, plastics, and then on the sectors of automotive and construction. And now maybe a little bit more about what we're here today. So from what we do is that we often talk with stakeholders from the industry. So for example, 2 weeks ago, we had a working group with representatives of steel and cement. And with them, we are actually discussing, okay, so how do we actually increase the use of scrap steel? How do we actually decarbonize the steel industry? We talk also with the automotive industry. How do we actually get the recycled steel into the value chain and so forth? Then in the cement part, we do the same with construction and demolition waste and so forth. And I would say that the key, maybe a remark from my side to this day, is that we're not even prepared for those kind of innovations and applications. So even though we have tons of steel scrap, even though we have tons of millions of tons of construction and demolition waste, we're unable to reuse it and recycle it, basically, or we downcycle it into applications which are less useful. So I think that's a whole space which we need to tackle. But if we even tackle that, there's still a huge space when it comes to the decarbonization of the whole industry. Even if we recycle construction and demolition waste in the construction industry, it still doesn't solve all of the emissions, right? Of course, cement producers are then discussing carbon capture and storage. But then we could come into the construction sector with a different approach and with a different sets of applications, and that's the nature-based solutions which we're discussing here. And I definitely agree that there's a whole space which we can utilize. But from my perspective, when talking to the industry stakeholders, talking to the representatives of the ministry, we're not really viewing this whole spectrum. I think we're really focusing mostly on the materials that we're well aware of, and definitely there's a huge space and a task for people like Philip to show these innovations to the public sector and kind of upscale them. Nevertheless, I can imagine that for we can call it hemp, but any, let's say, because for example, I was working for quite some time on the use of wheat straw in the Czech Republic, how that can be actually utilized. And I can imagine there's a steep road ahead with the current industry being very opposed to any innovations. For example, we've published another study on wood. Everybody knows wood, everyone is kind of familiar with that, but still the application of such well-known material in the industry is so low. It's mostly used in, let's say, small houses, but in multi-story buildings, you will find basically very limited amount of projects, and there's a huge battle between cement producers and concrete producers and other sort of value chains. So what I can maybe kind of bring into the discussion is I think that we have to discuss how do we sell these innovations into the industry, right? I mean, if you're a construction worker or a project manager or an architect, you're mostly following what the investor says and some safety codes. And I think that once we're talking about these kind of innovations, which in many aspects are, I'm sure, very much scaled up, we have to find the language that these people actually understand, and we have to be very strategic in terms of the safety applications, decarbonization potential, and so forth. So looking forward to the discussion as how we're going to do that, or what maybe you see as key barriers, key drivers in, let's say, the Czech Republic. We can also focus just on one sector or all of them, but that would be a big task, but happy to be here, and thanks a lot.
Well, thank you guys. That was a very nice introduction of yours. Let's now get into the discussion. So I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'll ask a couple of questions to each one of you, and if you want, like, react as you feel. I'd like to start with Maren. You spent many years traveling, and you work as a storyteller. I'll start broadly, if mitigating climate change is a story to tell, what is like the communication angle or the message that the hemp industry is not yet using in its full potential to tell this story? And then maybe in relation to what Pavel was saying with the mass adoption of the other industries in this material.
Well, the angle that I'm taking is maybe also a little bit deriving from how that journey started, which was that I didn't particularly look for hemp to become a next new project or a huge lifelong journey, as it seems. It was much more that the plan kept coming up in very particular moments with very particular solution angles that I couldn't really find anywhere else. So I tend to say as a byline, hemp is a little bit my compass through the sustainability sector, because it's a plant that doesn't really make it too easy for us to just apply its full potential, because we have to figure out technical things. We have to figure out innovations that have gotten lost during these 70 plus years of prohibition. And at the same time, when things don't come easy, we have to spend a lot more time thinking about them, which means we come up with a lot of other potential solutions that are not necessarily always and only based on hemp. So yes, I think at the moment it might still be a small incremental part that we can attribute, but I'll make it very bold and simple. If we all think hemp a little bit more, we'll probably come up on a ton more solutions, and we'll also start looking at our own practices in whatever way it is. Is it food? Is it textiles? Is it building? Is it plastics? Is it paper? I mean, that's exactly the thing. This one plan covers so many topics that it really forces you to look into a holistic side of your entire practice, and not just, okay, I take a flight, I buy a carbon credit or the carbon credits, and then I'm done with my bad footprint. But it kind of forces you to go one step beyond that. I hope that answered.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. If anyone wants to contribute more onto that, feel free. Then I was going to ask Hana, you've been working in the industry for more than 20 years. How has it changed since then, this conversation about the climate? Does it help? Is it a helpful factor that these bioeconomy strategies and climate change strategies has been inflected increasingly in the last couple of years? Do you see any difference compared to, let's say, your efforts 15 years ago?
Like 15 years ago, there wasn't much like discussion about climate change as we have today. So the link between climate change and hemp, I would say, wasn't really that strong like becoming today. Because today, everybody really, at least like the people who are aware about like their future, they seeing the climate change problem, and they're trying to, find some better future from their nature, I believe. So today it's true that there is a lot of like strategies like Green Deal and bioeconomy and sustainable development goals where hemp fits very well. Yeah, and we know that. I think the problem of hemp is that it's so complex and also connected to this cannabis plant that people freak out if just they they hear the word cannabis, you know, because it's been a long time, you know, said that it's just a drug, but we forgot that was also something else. And then historically we was using it on large scale, and we was eating it and building with that, and like putting as a bedding under our animals and wearing it and using as a medicine. And so it's kind of short memory of humankind in that case, I will say. So, but I feel like with all the troubles now, we're getting back to what hemp can offer, and there is not really plant which can offer so many solutions in or so many uses. So I believe sooner or later it will become just a regular plant and a regular crop, but the complexity it makes it a little bit more difficult, because we cannot just make economy on growing hemp for one particular purpose. Nowadays, the best solution, and it's kind of takeaway from French industry, where they grow hemp 60 years on like 20,000 hectares. It's that they do all dual crop, which means they grow hemp for seeds and stem to be able to use the wooden part, chives, and fiber. Yeah. So, and this is very complex, and it's not easy for the people to understand that, okay, like we have to figure out all these different parts. We need like special machines and special infrastructure, what we don't have. And it all costs money. So, but with these big investment funds from Europe, where they want to kind of figure out this climate change issue, I believe we have a good chance. We have a very good chance, better than ever. So, so this is why we are today, to just network and try to strengthen our collaboration to make the opportunity come in reality, and be able to employ more people on our kind of journey, and educate them, and also we need to educate governments. Yeah, but that's a different story. Yeah, but I think if we work hard, and we will have like more stuff to show, and maybe invite them to make them experience like what does it mean to build with hemp, what does it mean to wear hemp or eat hemp, then the human experience is always the best kind of moving part. Yeah, so I think more we do it, better people will experience that, and we can make it happen. I don't know if I respond to your question.
Yeah, I think it's all good. Question for you, Pavel. You spoke about all these different industries of cement, steel. Everything is quite related to the hemp industry, as the hemp industry has lots to offer for carbon reductions in these sectors. Do you have any like principles that we could use more? Do you have any, let's say, an example of another commodity, of another biomass that has been applied and adopted by these sectors on some scale that the hemp industry could get inspired by, because we'll probably be talking to these industries sooner or later?
Right. Well, I don't. And that's maybe... well, I think it's interesting, because what we do is that we have sort of like 4 analysts, or maybe I can just describe how we worked on this study. And we're sort of like working on a few projects. One is really focusing on circularity and decarbonization of the heavy industry. We focus on automotive sector, on construction sector, and so forth. And we have sort of like 4 analysts working on that. And of course, there's always sort of like a mentioning of nature-based solution as opposed to the current ones. But it seems to me that there is not like a robust emphasis on this. So ourselves, as and again, I'm not coming from sort of like a bioeconomy community explicitly, we don't tend to bump into these solutions that often. And so I think there's a lot of work actually in terms of like kind of getting nature-based solutions into these scenarios of decarbonization. And whereas currently you mostly work with recycling, you don't tend to work that much with substitution, right? Like, how do we substitute the high emission intensive materials with bio-based materials? Of course, you work with that, but it doesn't really get that much into the policy from my perspective. I think a game changer would be sort of like a corporate buy-in in terms of, like we know that or maybe one more thing. Primarily, we're still focusing decarbonization through the energy lens. We're now tending to focus a bit more on the material lens. So focusing on the embodied emissions in cars, in buildings, and so forth. But even there, we're still at the beginning. So most of the, I would say, countries, even companies, are still focusing how do we reduce our emissions in the energy part. And so once we'll be coming into, okay, so how do we reduce the emissions in the embodied carbon? Definitely circularity has a role to play, and nature-based solutions such as hemp has a role to play. But once that happens, I'm not sure to what extent, for example, EU taxonomy reflects nature-based solutions to this day. Are corporations actually motivated to include these kind of solutions into their day-to-day practices so that they're more taxonomy aligned, thereby more keen towards their investors? Maybe, if so, I'm sorry again, I'm not that knowledgeable about it. That would be a huge step forward, and I think this is the way to go forward in terms of getting it into the practice.
Awesome, amazing, thank you. Nando, what's the role of biochar, or the whole new methodology of carbon sequestration, of carbon removal certificates, and applying those in the regulated market or the voluntary market, and how far it's how far it is?
I'd like to jump on that point that you've just made in the end. How to get corporates motivated to buy into something like hemp or adopt that. If we think about it right now, corporates, mostly they have a financial approach, right? They need to maximize balance sheets, profits, whatsoever. So they don't really have to pay for the externalities that they cause, right? And externalities as in environmental pollution, climate pollution, whatsoever. So take building material in hemp, for example. Here we have a net negative production of building material, which is pretty special. Building sector is not by far net negative at the moment, right? So they have these targets, but it's not regulated yet, right? So at the moment, it's still like a building company. They are sort of allowed to pollute because we don't make them pay for the externalities. When it comes to motivating them to get into hemp, that's where I always like to say that it sort of needs that macroeconomic leverage. So once we can declare officially through public systems, certification mechanisms, currently that only works on a voluntary market. I mean, there are compliance markets in place, but it's not harmonized yet. It's all a bit chaotic. So once we manage to give the hemp industry that stamp that, for example, a building company, if you buy into a hempcrete production, you actually balance out your CO2 balance, your emission balance, and that is how you can, in the long term, achieve a net zero goal. Of course, there are other ways to decarbonize concrete production as well, but put it in your portfolio as a solution and do what you would call insetting. Yeah, so usually we would have the model that you pollute and then you buy a credit and then you are climate neutral. But then most often these credits aren't net negative credits. So actually you're not climate neutral. So once we understand, or once those corporations understand that, and in the meantime we manage to sort of declare the hemp industry in certain areas as a net negative industry, I think that's where there's going to be a lot of motivation to adopt hemp on an industrial scale or like macroeconomically. You asked how biochar comes into play there, right? So, well, take food, for example. I think in the beginning, in Maren's presentation, we've seen that like 18-point-something% of emissions are related to agriculture and land use. So what we eat is very crucial if we want to reach a net zero economy. Now, the great thing with hemp is, for example, you could farm for seed, right? It's a high quality protein, and you could use the stalk to make biochar from that. That biochar, again, you combine it with compost, for example, makes very good fertilizer. You put the compost back into the soil, has certain benefits to the soil, and that's how you closed the carbon cycle, right? And through transforming that embedded carbon in the stalk, that's how you made it more durable, right? If you would just put in the stalk without carbonizing it before, then over a shorter amount of time, like a few years, embedded carbon is going to emit again. So through that transformation, it's going to take like up to 1,000 years. And this carbon sink is basically what we need, right? So that is how essentially you can create a net negative food production. And with hemp that works well. I mean, of course, you can use other agricultural residues too. So biochar is in general, I believe for agriculture, a very interesting method. But especially with hemp, yeah, that works well in terms of the life cycle assessment and net negativity. Right, so not only with food, you can of course do that with all kinds of other products. CBD, for example, a lot of CBD productions don't use their stalk, right? And especially in countries in the global south, they often burn the residues. So that's essentially where biochar can, make that much better. And if you can, on top of that, credit this and sort of give it to a larger company buying into this and adding it to their company, that's what I think in the long term, there's a lot of attractiveness for other industries to buy into hemp.
Yeah, Pavel wanted to react.
Just a short reaction. I think that it's not true that companies don't internalize some of their cost onto the environment. I mean, especially if you're working in the construction sector, steel and cement are under the ETS. So basically, you do include the carbon price into the price to the investor. But I think exactly we're talking about the point that when we get into the fact that really, let's say, construction companies are pressured to downscale their embedded carbon. So what is the material that they'll go for on a large scale? And I think that's the key question. What is the material that can actually kind of be price effective, that can be, from this standpoint of me being a project manager or an architect, like really aligned in terms of the safety standards that are there. So I'm really signed onto this building that it won't fall down. In terms of like some certificates, in terms of LCA and carbon emissions and so forth. So, and the key question is, does hemp has that? And if so, like how far are we in that? And I think there's a huge competition in terms of like, if we're talking maybe about construction industry, and the question is, does hemp actually, should it be applied in the construction industry mainly, or should it be other maybe sectors that in which it really has the biggest added value? But if it's construction, then it's a huge competition there, right? So I think we have to ask these questions and really frame it where it's the best applications for these kind of materials.
I will just mention that we have the last panel mostly focused on building, and I believe our panelists will respond to these questions because they work on the large kind of scale of hemp constructions already.
Even though you said that, let me lose one word on it. I think we shouldn't be doing the mistake of always thinking in our Western world heights, because there's also a lot of countries who are still building, they need methods of building fast and quick and with their own hands. And this was really one of the things that I found to be most amazing about hemp, because you can apply it into all of these different schemes. You can do industrial size building when it's a prefabricated brick, but you can also give that open source to people on the grounds. And we have someone sitting in the audience from Haiti who can probably also, in the networking session, give some information on that, what happens in the aftermath of an earthquake. And you have people with, hands on the ground, they need to fix something. And then hempcrete with the RAND method would be a perfect solution. So I think, again, the plant is very complex because it just doesn't give one answer, it gives us many, but we need to be the ones to sort out where we use these answers wisely.
Let me just quickly add something. I think it's a very just question that you're raising. Are there other solutions, and how does hemp fit in? And I think hemp is one solution. So, I mean, this panel is called Hemp's Contribution to Climate Mitigation, and not hemp is that one single and the only solution to climate mitigation. So I think being aware of that, it's there. It's an industry that I believe is ready to have an impact. And it is one solution. We need many solutions, right? It's a big problem that we're facing. Yeah, I'm considering hemp as one solution that is ready to adopt and to scale. I think is the right path, and not thinking it's that only solution.
Just a short reaction. You have a nice work. You don't need to ask any questions. No, but definitely. I mean, I'm super excited about all the work you do, and definitely, I don't want to be perceived as against it. I think it has a really important role to play. Maybe I'm just sort of like playing the role. Like, how would you explain it to someone who's not in the industry, and how would I kind of behave, and what would be my questions then? And how would maybe I be then kind of trying to talk to other stakeholders, and what would be my arguments to actually get that through? So definitely, I think it has a very important role to play. I mean, we're still really far from, I think, appreciating the fact that we will need to remove carbon dioxide from the air at some point. Otherwise, we won't get into the targets that we have.
Awesome. I'd like to open up the space for your questions. If any of you want to ask something, then maybe we'll probably a microphone. Michael? There's a microphone here. Maybe there's a button. Or maybe this one. Yes, we'll have questions, and so maybe Philip can start here.
First question I see is you. Sorry.
All right, so it's me again, Philip from Czech Invest. I would like to ask you, it's probably a specific Czech question, but maybe it could apply on any country. You're saying that there is the certification is a bit lacking, some consensus how it should be done, that this is carbon neutral and so on. And Hanka also said that there are so many applications within the hemp. It's really difficult to get to know the hemp, or not to be afraid of it even. So do you think, and maybe Pavel also mentioned the taxonomy over here, so do you think that something like a national hemp strategy, like a proper one, what we are going to focus on, what we're gonna deliver until when, the national strategy within the action plan would be nice, could actually help, accelerate the hemp industry? It could apply on any country. Maybe you can share some French experience, Hanka. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I've been last week at the Amsterdam. There was an international hemp building symposium, and Alex Barrow, who is a builder from UK, was presenting actually their strategy on hemp building focus, because he's a builder. But because the value chain is so big, so it cannot be just a building, as we know. So it was a big strategy on hemp and cannabis, complex strategy, which was done by kind of for UK government in collaboration with the different stakeholders. So in UK they have it. In France, they have a regional strategy in the place where located the most of the industrial hemp for the bioeconomy, where hemp is already integrated. So we have things to learn from. We already started to work on the strategy. Of course, we will need to go to the government to present it, which will happen very soon. And everybody who is happy to work on that with us, you can become the CzecHemp member and working group member, and then you are in, and we are happy to share everything we're working on with you. But it's not really like for today, to share everything here. But it's happening, and there is definitely takeaways to be taken from UK, from France, probably also from US. But it's a little bit different environment in US, so will be a little bit probably difficult to apply to Europe, but for sure, like they are very innovative and there is a big research platform for hemp, so can be interesting as well. So yeah, it will be helpful, and it's already seen that the countries who are the most forward with hemp, they already did it. So there is like nothing we should hesitate to do. This is why we already started. And hopefully it will be nicely accepted by our government and implemented in the bioeconomy strategy, where we are like member of this platform. So we were already working on to implement hemp in the bioeconomy strategy in Czech Republic for sure. This is why we kind of became member of INCIEN, because after my talk, we working on the decarbonization without anything plant-based. I was kind of all right, like maybe there is like room for us. So there wasn't yet some special meeting on like building and their members. Yeah, so hopefully something will come soon and we can meet with all the members of INCIEN hotspot who are focusing on building, and we can present what we're working on and maybe somehow inspire the people. But yeah, definitely, like strategy is important, you know, because without strategy, hemp is like very broad topic, and if we have not strategy, we get very easily lost. So we really need a strategy, and Europe will need strategy too. But we decide also with EA that will be good to work on the strategy only for like one nation before they go to the European government or European whatever levels to work on some European strategy for industrial hemp, which will be probably even better. But first, let's do Czech one as a nation one, and if we create some cool guidelines, we can share with the rest of the Europe. So that's our plan.
Thank you. I'd just like to add onto that it's truly crucial to build these lobbying or advocacy groups like in their interdisciplinary fields, no? Like to really bring in voices from other experts, from other expertise, not just the hemp industry. That makes it more credible, and that's why we're working on with different experts like you. Okay, another question? Oh,
Yeah,
you guys wanted to react?
I saw one here. Excuse me.
Good morning. I'm from Wind Farm Ecological Reserve, Haiti. In relation to the sustainable goals, is hemp planted as a monoculture? And if so, what effect does it have on biodiversity?
Good question, thank you.
I will respond that. No, basically, like hemp, it's a monoculture, but like basically, like the farming to make like sustainable farming. Of course, you grow like fields, but if you don't do like 200-hectare fields as a monoculture, but you do smaller plots and you diversify the small plots and you do like crop rotation and you apply organic or even regenerative farming, that even in the monoculture, because it will be difficult to grow hemp one line and then something else and then efficiently harvest that. So monoculture, it's not like some pejorative word for growing hemp, but it needs to be taken in complex manner of all knowledge we know about the sustainable farming. And hemp can be very, very efficient for sustainable farming, for regenerative farming, for organic farming. So I believe there is also like good example for like implementation hemp in the rotation cycles of the regular crops what we grow today, because can help improve soil and decrease the use of chemicals, or even react well on the organic fertilizers, so we don't need to use the artificial fertilizers too big. Maybe in the future if we grow more hemp. But yeah, I think can apply as a mono, but need to be complex.
Yeah, Maren.
I just want to drop a word on that. I went to China to look at the textile industry based on hemp, which I think we can definitely label a monoculture on large scale. And due to the absence of herbicides and pesticides, I was very surprised when the harvest was happening. There were flocks of black swallows basically feeding all of these insects of the hemp plants. There was like a line of, I think it was like 7 or 8 John Deere machines doing the harvest, and then just black clouds of these swallows feeding on the freshly harvested plants. So I think we also should emphasize that because there is the absence of the chemicals used in the hemp growing, even if we go large scale and we have it a monocrop, that there's certain issues that we find in other parts of agriculture that are not really applying, or at least not in the sense. But that was just to add.
Yeah, and maybe like we really want like monoculture for hemp in regards the harvesting and big scale using. Like if the harvest is so complicated, I mean, it's a special machine which really costs like, I don't know, €500,000. We want to use them efficient on a little bit like bigger than like little tiny fields, which will be probably better for our biodiversity. But I think we need to balance that kind of, because if we want to scale up the hemp, we need large machines. Large machines will hardly operate on the small fields. So we need to probably better choose the right way of like operating the soil and like the rotation cycle than trying to decrease the plots, because bigger plots, better consistency of the quality and better application for the big industries. So I will better focus than the large size of hectareage on the way of agronomy.
Thank you for the questions. I think the hemp industry needs like a unified response to that question, because we'll be asked that more frequently if we want to really apply hemp on such a massive scale. I still Rick, yeah.
I think this question is probably mostly for Pavel, but anyone. In my day job, I work in bioeconomy policy on the national level in the US government. And one of the things that we're looking at in terms of an operating principle for bioeconomy is that it is substituting renewable resources for non-renewable resources, just anywhere. And so this is either a question or a suggestion. Hopefully it's a question, because hopefully you have something to answer with. But does it work, or could it work, particularly in conversations with steel and concrete industries, about how you can call it nature-based solutions, plant-based solutions, hemp in particular, can help them decarbonize without driving them out of business? We need their investment, right, in order to get the processing infrastructure, whether it's biochar, hemp, anything else. So blending these things to reduce the carbon footprint of those materials might incentivize them to at least not push back and maybe even help. So have you had any conversations like that in your context? And that's for anyone, but.
Yeah. Sure. So I think it's important to, of course, let's say cement producers know what's going to happen, and they're, if you talk with them, they have these 4 types of cements. It's like CEM 1, CEM 2, CEM 3, and it's CEM 1 is the most carbon intensive. It has the largest amount of clinker, and they know that these types of cements won't be in demand, and that they have to prepare for another kind of round. So they're already making investments into low carbon cements, which are not as carbon they're not definitely carbon negative as as hemp, but it's sort of like for them a natural step forward because they know the field, they know that they will be reducing their carbon emissions, maybe not that much as in other industries, but it's definitely what they're forward. The same is in steel. Right? You know that the carbon price will be high, thereby some steel producers they all have investment plans into maximizing their steel scrap use. And this happens in every industry, right? So basically, this traditional industry will be competing with the new industries, such as let's say, a hemp production. And I think at some point, and that's also, I guess, where the battle happens is also on this like regulatory phase. So of course, these companies are motivated to reduce their carbon emissions, and they'll be looking for materials which are in accordance to their needs. The question is, will they go to something which they already know, but is less carbon intensive, or will they go to something which is completely new for them, and they have no idea? And so I think that's why I think there's a steep road ahead for you guys, because I think it's, at least in the Czech Republic, when I see kind of the reality, I'm a big fan of these solutions. I myself was working on, as I said, for some time on the bioeconomy sphere, but I know that there's so much, how do you call it, lock-in into these current technologies, because we could basically, at this day, we could be using much less amount of concrete in the construction sector. That would be the most simple circular solution. Let's use less of the carbon-intensive materials, but we're not doing that because the safety standards are too strict. And why are they too strict? Because it's something we're used to do, and it's something that we'd rather overuse the amount of material so that we can be used to be safe, rather than. So there's so much work ahead. So and definitely, I think there's a room ahead, but I think the key answer would be there's large competition waiting, I think, for the other materials that I've just mentioned.
I would like to add something, maybe. So basically, the question was, how can you decarbonize something like a cement corporation without driving them out of business, right?
Well, the question was...
Yeah. No, it's...
Can we use hemp or other plant-based materials?
I just wanted to recap. So I just want to make a very basic example on that, maybe. It's usually a basic economic example when it comes to how trade functions whatsoever. Let's think about, I produce apples, you produce oranges, right? In 1 hour, I produce 5 apples, you produce 5 oranges. If I would produce oranges, I just produce 3. And if you would produce apples, you just produce 3, right? So we trade the excess that we have. Now, if you apply this very simple idea on, you have 2 types of concrete whatsoever in your portfolio, the one produces more revenue because you don't really have to pay up for the externalities, and the other produces more net negative emissions, right, in the same amount of time or effort. So in the end, you balance this out, and like by this guiding principle, sort of, I think that's how a company that is big in the building sector could just add hemp to their portfolio and balance out their, emissions and not being driven out of business. Makes sense?
Thank you, Rick. I also sense that a part of the question was, do we want to inspire the businesses to invest in the infrastructure themselves, or create a market uptake so that we can create incentives for investors or ourselves to create that infrastructure for processing, So thank you for the responses. Is there any more questions?
Thanks. Matej Bičan from Cividical Slovakia. I will try to be quick. It's kind of a similar question as the colleague said. Everybody wants to have an influence and money. The companies we've been talking about, they want to make money from making steel and so on and so on. We want to have clear environment to be eco and to work with hemp. Everybody wants that. My question is, you all for sure been in touch with companies we are talking about, like pharma industry, the tree, like paper sector. What, in a few words, what was your feeling, or what was their opinion of your work? Are they like to are they want to cooperate with you? Because I think it's really easy to reach our goals when we give them like the way. The state, like the country, the companies, and we, they got the money, the country can do the law things and so on. So that's the simple question.
Thank you. Do you?
I will shortly. I would just like short comment, yeah, because the companies you're asking about for, like, it's a big international corporate industries, yeah. So we have to acknowledge that our production, it's under their radar. We tried to go talk to Škoda in Czech Republic, and they was like happy to work with us if we can supply something what we cannot supply, yeah? So basically, your question, if we talk to this company, we don't talk to them because we have nothing to offer. Because what we can go talk to them to create some kind of like pilot projects. If we find out that there is somebody really want to do pilot project, yeah? But when they like crash the concrete and create new one because it's easier for them than like investing in like pilots to bringing the more sustainable solution. There is not really much to talk to them about, yeah? So what we can do, we can inspire, we can take our road, and we can grow our industry in the level that we will be big enough to go to talk to them. Because just talking to them, when we are not ready to supply what they need, it's a little bit like wasting their time and our time too, from my really honest opinion. Because there is much more to do than just talking to somebody. I feel like I've been like 25 years in this industry. It's like a lot of people talking, yeah? I'm like very upset about like talking anymore. I want to do. So if I can do something, I want to do it. But talking, really not my intentions anymore.
Thanks. We had another question over there. To you, Michael? Yeah.
Thank you. Mine is just more than a question. I want to add something that our friends talk about. We are coming from Turkey. Me and my friend, Professor Onur, we are two textile professors. And in our country, we have settled our own hemp consortium. We combined 30 companies and 7 universities. And we are working on different subgroups: textile, pharmacy, chemistry, polymers, advanced composites, and structural composites. And we are preparing a large project to be granted by World Bank. So we are here just to talk about what we can do together. Yes, you are right, because talking is not enough. Now it's time to get an action. And we took this action in our country, because in our consortium we have really large companies, not on textile, but also chemistry and pharmacy. And also that is one point. The second is that as a textile academician, I have to say that hemp harvesting is sustainable, because you consume very less chemical, as you mentioned, low pesticides, something like that. But the cultivation process is not sustainable. To get the fiber inside the bast, you really need too much water. So that's a big setback in our applications. First, we have to also focus on this issue for getting fiber from the plants. And I want to add that question that we are ready here to talk about what to do together. Thank you.
Yeah, do you guys feel like reacting to that? No?
I didn't catch the real question.
Yeah, well, was your main point about the water consumption in the decortication process, or?
Actually, I just wanted to 2 points. One's that you were right. It's just enough talking, we need to take action, and we are ready to get action from our clusters, from our consortium. But my question is, what else do you plan to do, or do you have any strategy on the decortication of plant, of hemp to get fiber? Because it consumes too much water. Do you have any strategy for that?
No, decortication, it's like no water.
Wait. May I jump in on this?
But before you need retting, so retting requires too much water.
That's why he's saying that.
Yeah.
No, I think if I may take a quick try, I've been twice for the hemp project in Turkey, and I think what you're referring to is that you still have very manual fiber extraction, which means it's also including the water retting. And I think yes, and I think when we're talking. But I think that's also related to there still being a very manual process. Like I was in Turkey last year in October when the first hemp harvester arrived from, I think it came from Romania. And there's a lot of solid knowledge in Turkey on the ground when it comes down to, the ancient history of how to extract the fiber, which is still done in a very manual way, as said before. And I think there will be a big shift into a more industrial way of working now with machines arriving. Also, there's the Hemp Institute in Samsun at the Ondukush University. So I think, Turkey, I feel, is a very interesting country because you have an ancient history that's still standing, that's still being used, that never really fell off the radar like in many other countries. But now the question is how to do that transition into industrial practice and still keep it clean. But I see this happening.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? We got like 5 more minutes, 7 more minutes, more or less. All right, Eric.
Go. I actually just wanted to follow up on this note of doing something and also what you mentioned, and maybe government ministries, and maybe it's already happening, but de-risking the production, right? So Škoda, you wanna have a deal with them, but you don't have supply. You don't have supply because it's too risky, and other reasons, right? So if there were, so in the US we have a $3.2 billion project to promote production of climate-smart commodities. About 15% of that, so about $450 million, is going to projects that include hemp. They're actually just paying farmers to grow hemp and covering the operating expenses for processors to process it so that the raw material is there. And then you can go to the textile companies, the paper manufacturers, and say, here, try this. And so nobody is at risk. It ends up being something that just helps farmers, right? So if anybody's going to make free money off of it, let it be the farmers. And these are pilot projects that will see how these things work. It's all in the name of adopting climate smart practices, bioeconomy, whatever label you like. So, I feel like there's those kinds of opportunities in the EU with Green Deal, but maybe they're not being directed enough at climate smart or hemp. Just pay the farmers to grow the stuff, cover the operating expenses for some decorticators, so you can go to Škoda and say, here, how many tons do you need to do a run so you can try it at no risk, and then here you go. Does that work?
I think in Europe it works more like from the end, like where is the demand there, like the market creates, so there is definitely demand for hemp materials because I know that like the big companies cannot supply the demand from some companies I know in their like needs. So on like long-term contract, let's say. So there is definitely demand. The price increasing every year, or a little bit. Actually, it's not true. January sent a little bit cheaper prices from last year than this year, so it's not true. But like it's kind of. But if we see like from last 10 years, the price definitely increasing, and I feel like we just need to use these budgets for bioeconomy to really create the infrastructure, because this is what we're missing. Yeah, and then we go to farmers, like, because going to the farmers, grow hemp, and then like what to do with that, it's not really a good strategy. So we need to have like infrastructure which will be already invested, which will manage the contract with the uptake for the particular quality, and also like manage the contract the farmers for the particular quality of their processing, and it's like really diversified supply chain where the company which want to jump in need to be aware that they will need to work with the farmers. They need to be aware that they will need to work with the market, and maybe even build up a secondary processing because maybe the quality of the fiber they produce is not enough for the market. So maybe they need to do some secondary processing, be able to place it on the market, or maybe they just partner with somebody who will build next to their facility like hemp concrete brick production, like but it's complex, it's a big investment, that the return of the money, it's like not really like 3 years, it's maybe 7 years. Yeah, so it's not such an easy job, and also like because so many variables, their prices changing on the market for the farmers and their interest, what they farm when, and then the price is changing on the final market, and energy costs changing all the time. So it's a complex, and there need to be somebody who really like good prepared, well managed person, or kind of group of people. Not me. I have like so much on my plate. I'm happy to help people, but definitely not going to run any decortication facility in my life. And if I do, remind me that, because it will be very crazy that I will do that. But I can definitely help with that, because after 25 years, I have knowledge, and I have interest to share my knowledge with the people who have passion to sit on one place and do just one thing, which is running the decortication line. Who know me well, he knows that I'm not capable of that.
Thank you, Hana. We get 3 more reactions. One Pavel, then Maren, and then Nando can conclude, or depends how you feel it.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on that, because I think that like the de-risking factor would be a great argument, I think, maybe for using hemp in general. When you see the European Union moving in this direction with the Critical Raw Materials Act and with other bills that are actually really focusing on that. So I think this is something that's maybe even like the whole bioeconomy sphere is not emphasizing that much, at least from my perspective. We tend to see that more in the abiotic materials, going into battery production, etc. But do we actually put this argument in front? So I think that's a great approach. And then I just wanted to react on the sort of like a proactive approach of the government, maybe in terms of facilitating the creation of the different value chains. What you've mentioned, like, hey, let's use it. I think that's still not happening here for quite some time due to many reasons. Also, I think you would be surprised how well prepared these big companies are for these transitions. I think they're not at the point where they would be thinking about how do we invest into what are the investment projects for us to reduce or let's say to increase our recycled content of plastic in our, whatever there is in cars. They're not that far But I think it's coming, and the de-risking argument, I think, is great.
Yeah. Let me also jump in on this. I think we need a lot of Hanas to really further that space, because one of the things I keep seeing, and I also experienced with the book, making that paper was such a difficult thing, because eventually I realized that we're shipping all of this hemp grown all over Europe down to Spain for it to be pulped there. And then basically come back or across the pond, because most of the American paper companies that are working with hemp paper are also receiving their paper pulp from Spain. So this is anywhere close to a bioeconomy or a local supply chain or anything. And I think we need to understand that also, or at least this is one of the complaints that I heard from a lot of people that are growing hemp, is that they're missing this immediate supply chain that will communicate with them how to grow the hemp. If you're growing hemp for textile, you have to do it different than when you're growing it for paper. You have to do it different than when you're growing it for CBD or building material. And I think we have a lot of these missing gaps that I think we have established already, and we know them within the industry, that really need to be wisely closed without, involving any egos, because if there is a person who has that knowledge and can fill these gaps, then these are the ones that need to step up and be in these, I'll want to say, these diplomatic positions in between governments and supply chains, and make sure these things are formed right. Because if we have to ship biomass across countries, even in Europe, we're not following up with any of all of this carbon neutrality that we're talking about, or carbon sink. We'll basically be applying these practices just to mitigate our own footprint that we are causing, because we haven't really built up the supply chains locally and right. Or just missing pieces. I don't want to say that it's done in any wrong way, but for example, this caused this book to be an extremely expensive book, because the paper was 400 times more expensive than any other high-class and expensive paper on the market. And that's a decision you take, which, there's only a few people who will be stupid enough to do that.
Thank you, Maren. That was a great contribution. Nando, do you want to close this?
Yeah, I'll try with some motivating words in the end.
All right.
No, all good. I think it's just a matter of time, actually, until this industry is going to scale. In my opinion, everything is there. It's an industry of very great people and open minds and good heart, and also of actual economic opportunity. So there's just a knowledge gap yet of those key decision makers, and that simply takes time. So I guess this industry is here to stay, and comes time, there will be more and bigger success cases of actual supply chains that produce great products, more and more successes in almost any product category that this plant can accomplish. So yeah, stay tuned.
All right, thank you very much. We've got to finish. There's another panel coming. I thank you to all the panelists, all the speakers, all your questions. To my knowledge, most of you are going to stay during the day, so you guys can always meet up during the lunch breaks, coffee breaks, and probably even on the tomorrow's networking for those of you that it applies to with the Hemp Club. Yeah, thank you very much.